Sure.
Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. Both fighters are in camp, displaying power shots, speed drills, and pure intensity. The weight issue is gone, the rivalry is personal, and now Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. is finally happening on April 26th. Fans are split, experts are debating, and no one can agree on who walks away with the win. So who really has the edge this time? Despite stepping away from Chris Eubank Jr.'s corner after the Liam Smith loss, Roy Jones Jr. still knows his former fighter better than most. As the hype builds around the long-delayed showdown with Conor Benn, Roy gave his honest take, balancing respect for Benn's power with confidence in Eubank's ring IQ.
I think it's going to be a very good fight. Conor has punch and power chances. Chris is the bigger guy, so you give Chris the advantage going in because he's the bigger guy, but Conor does have exceptional punch and power, so it's going to be a great fight. I think Chris should win the fight. I think Chris should outbox him, outsmart him, but he will have to be smart early because Conor is a great puncher.
Roy's breakdown echoes a key concern among analysts: Conor Benn's explosive starts. If Eubank Jr. plays it too loose early on, he could get caught cold. But if he survives the early rounds and keeps the fight tactical, Roy believes his size, experience, and boxing IQ should carry him through. It's a classic power versus patience matchup, and one mistake could change everything. British heavyweight Fabio Wardley didn't hesitate when asked to weigh in on the Benn vs. Eubank matchup. While he respects both fighters, especially Conor Benn's grit and explosiveness, Wardley believes this fight might come down to something you can't train for: natural size and weight. To explain why, he drew a bold comparison to one of boxing's most discussed matchups in recent years.
I like Benn, but I think I'd go with Eubank. I think size will play a factor. I think size and weight will play a big factor. I think the biggest kind of takeaway, the reference point you could use would be like Canelo and Bivol. Would be a clear one of, like, don't get me wrong, Canelo is a fucking wizard and a master at his job and what he does, but when he got in there with Bivol and he was hitting him with shots and they just weren't hitting the same, they didn't have the same impact, they didn't back him up the same, they didn't do the same kind of damage. And I think it will be a similar thing with Eubank and Benn.
Wardley's comparison adds weight to a growing narrative. No matter how fast or explosive Benn looks, physics could be the deciding factor. Just like Canelo couldn't shake Bivol at 175, Benn might struggle to hurt a naturally bigger, more durable Chris Eubank Jr. at 160 plus. But if Benn can crack through the size gap early, this entire prediction flips. Long before Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. became headline fighters, their fathers were at the heart of one of British boxing's most legendary rivalries. Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Sr. fought in the 90s in a bitter battle that ended in a controversial draw. That rivalry wasn't just about belts, it was personal, emotional, and unforgettable. Now, over 30 years later, their sons are preparing to settle the score, but in a surprising twist, Chris Eubank Sr. has stepped out of the shadows with a direct message, not for his own son, but for Conor Benn.
Let Conor go and have his illustrious career here in the United Kingdom and then in the United States, because he beats them all. That's how fantastic I think he is. I've always backed you, Conor. I've always backed you. Okay? You're sensible. If it's true that you've said things about me which are not complimentary, I don't mind that. I'm looking at the people that you're around. Here it is. You know the spirit world. That's how I know you're an honest man. The people around you are part of a gang. It's a team thing. You're the mark. Okay? The only person who's going to look out for you is you, supposed to be your dad, and people like me. You can trust me. Yeah, you've seen me get up in a fight I can't win and walk back into the fire. You can trust me. I'm not going to give you any, I'm not going to mislead you. You know? I'm a lawman.
This wasn't just a prediction, it was almost a warning. Eubank Sr. spoke like a man who's seen the dark side of the sport and now wants to shield a young rival from the same fate. He praised Benn's talent, questioned the motives of those around him, and painted himself not as an enemy, but a protector. It's a shocking moment. The father of Chris Eubank Jr. openly admiring the son of his fiercest rival, and it adds another layer of emotional complexity to a fight already drenched in legacy. But whether Ben takes this message to heart or sees it as mind games from an old rival remains to be seen. While most analysts are cautiously breaking down size, styles, and family legacies, Dave Allen isn't holding back. Known for saying things how they are, the heavyweight didn't sugarcoat his feelings when asked about Eubank Jr. versus Ben. Instead of hyping it as a 50-50 grudge match, Allen sees it as something else entirely.
Yeah, I think it's a mismatch on paper. Of course it is. It's a fella that won a British title at welterweight, who hasn't boxed for a long time, against a faded world-class middleweight. So I haven't really got any interest, to be honest.
His take cuts through all the nostalgia and build-up. Allen's basically saying this fight is more spectacle than sport. From his perspective, Ben's size and inactivity don't match up to a fighter who's been competing at 160 and 168. And on top of that, he dismisses Eubank as failed world class, highlighting just how underwhelming both resumes look from a purist's lens. It's a harsh perspective, but it's one some fans quietly agree with. Even within the Eubank family, there's a strong divide on how real of a contest this fight actually is. While some fans are calling it a 50-50 grudge match, Harlem Eubank, Chris Jr.'s cousin and an active professional fighter himself, doesn't see it that way at all. He believes the fight isn't just uneven, it's misleading by design.
It's a mismatch. It's an entertaining matchup.
Why is it a mismatch?
Because of ability, because of weight classes. Chris Jr. is a middleweight and a super middleweight. He's naturally a super middleweight. So, he's having to starve himself to come down and, with all the catch weights and all of this stuff, it's a mismatch.
Okay.
He is operated at world level. He's been in with the likes of George Groves and, the list goes on. It's a mismatch in ability and weight class.
From Harlem's point of view, Conor Benn isn't just up against experience, he's up against biology. Chris Jr. cutting down from super middleweight while Ben moves up from welterweight creates a distorted battleground where the physical disadvantages may be too much for Ben to overcome. It's a perspective that exposes the strategic risks behind the hype and questions whether fans are watching a genuine clash or a controlled collision between marketable names. As the buzz intensifies around the potential showdown, the Eubank camp is making it clear they don't see this as a competitive match at all. Harlem Eubank, the younger Eubank fighter with insider knowledge of his cousin's abilities, sees a massive gap in skill between the two competitors. Despite the external hype, Harlem is adamant that when it comes to raw ability and experience, Chris Eubank Jr. stands in a league of his own. His take comes from years of sparring, watching his cousin grow, and observing the fighters around them. Harlem Eubank stated, "I think Chris is leaps and bounds ahead of Conor. His experience, his ability, boxing skill set is on a completely different level." Harlem's words hold weight, especially considering his position within the Eubank family. Chris Eubank Jr. has faced high-level opponents like George Groves and James DeGale. His experiences, especially under the spotlight of massive fights, put him in a different bracket compared to Conor Benn. While Ben has his own impressive wins, Harlem's assessment signals that the Eubank name might be too much for Ben to handle when it comes to boxing fundamentals, craft, and composure. This stark contrast in experience and skill is going to play a huge role in how the fight unfolds, and Harlem's insight reinforces the idea that Ben may be out of his depth in this contest. As we continue to hear different opinions on who holds the upper hand in this fight, Ramton Musa, a fighter who sparred with Conor Benn in Spain ahead of the Chris Eubank Jr. showdown, offers a unique perspective from his first-hand experience in the ring with Ben. His insight sheds light on Ben's explosive power, his conditioning, and how he truly stacks up in a real sparring session.
I just see him winning. I don't see how he comes. I think he's very, very powerful, and I think he could win by knockout, but it's not my place to say. But I just think I do see a win coming for him. He's very, very explosive, and personally, I don't know. I sparred various different people. I wasn't sure what to expect, and I didn't know, obviously being a super middleweight, I didn't know what to expect in the size. I thought I'd be a bit too big for him, and I didn't know whether his power would carry across, but it really has.
Musa's words carry weight, particularly his mention of Benn's explosiveness and power carrying across weight classes. Despite being a super middleweight, Benn's ability to handle the size disparity and still deliver knockout power is impressive. It's clear Musa was caught off guard by Benn's abilities, and his prediction of a win by knockout adds another layer of intrigue to the already heated debate on who has the edge. Musa's comments raise a big question. If Benn can handle the size disadvantage and still bring the heat, could this fight be far more competitive than many people think? As opinions continue to pour in about this highly anticipated matchup, Adam Smith, a respected figure in the boxing world, shares his take on the fight. Having spoken to a variety of people in the industry, Smith highlights the split opinions surrounding the outcome. Both sides of the debate have their passionate supporters, and Smith points to several factors that make this fight a real challenge to call.
Look, I think it's a fight that's very difficult to pick. I've spoken to a lot of people, and I would say maybe 60% are going with Eubank, but there's plenty of Conor Benn believers, and not just in Matchroom or around the Benn stable. I think the weight's interesting. The time it's taken to make the fight is obviously another one. Eubank has obviously fought at a higher level and has the experience. I think he's been brilliant so far in the build-up. But Conor's dangerous, and he's going to fly at Chris, I think. Now, whether that...
Adam Smith highlights a crucial factor in this fight, the split in opinion. While Eubank's experience and history at the world level make him a favorite for many, Benn's unpredictability and dangerous nature in the ring should not be underestimated. Smith's comment about the weight issue is also noteworthy. Could Benn's ability to compete at a catchweight give him a new edge? It's clear that this fight has so many variables at play, and the build-up has added a sense of anticipation. Will Eubank's experience prevail, or will Benn's relentless energy and raw power catch him off guard? As the fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn draws nearer, Joe Cooper, a seasoned boxing analyst, offers his brutally honest assessment. With both fighters still in the spotlight, Cooper is confident in his prediction based on Eubank's experience and size advantage. He critiques Benn's past opponents and his relatively limited experience at the highest level of the sport, making a bold claim about how the fight might unfold.
Personally, I think Eubank's too big and too good and too experienced. Conor Benn's never been tested. He's never fought outside the British level, in my opinion. He beat Chris Algieri, who was a washed up man and a smaller man as well. So, listen, I like Conor Benn. I think he's a good fighter, but I think Eubank stops him late, if I'm honest.
Joe Cooper's blunt perspective echoes a common sentiment. Eubank's size and experience at the highest levels of boxing give him the upper hand. His critique of Benn's competition raises questions about how prepared the young fighter really is for a world-class opponent like Eubank Jr. While Cooper acknowledges Benn's potential, the fact that he hasn't been pushed outside the British boxing scene raises doubts. Will Benn's raw power be enough to overcome Eubank's edge in skill and experience, or will it be a late stoppage as Cooper predicts? As Billy Joe Saunders weighs in on the highly anticipated clash between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, he doesn't mince words. Known for his sharp boxing mind and confident demeanor, Saunders is quick to assess Benn's power and whether it could pose a serious threat to Eubank. Despite the size and experience advantage that Eubank brings, Saunders believes that Benn's knockout potential could be the game changer, especially if he lands clean. Billy Joe Saunders stated, "I just think if Conor catches him clean and can follow up on one of them good shots, sort of like a Liam Smith shot, I think Conor Benn knocks him out." Saunders' take brings a fresh perspective to the debate. While many experts point to Eubank's size and experience as the deciding factors, Saunders emphasizes that Benn's power should not be underestimated. The comparison to Liam Smith's shot, which had a significant impact on Eubank Jr., adds weight to his prediction. If Benn can land a similar punch and capitalize on it, we could witness an explosive turn of events in this highly anticipated fight. Saunders' bold prediction also raises the stakes for Benn, who will need to be both precise and relentless if he hopes to pull off the upset. As the Eubank Jr. versus Benn fight draws closer, the anticipation continues to build. With both fighters bringing different strengths to the table, the opinions of seasoned trainers like Peter Fury become essential in predicting what we might see in the ring. Fury, known for his sharp tactical insight, breaks down the fight and highlights key elements that could determine the outcome. His take delves into the dynamic contrast between the two fighters, touching on the significance of their size, strength, and experience. Peter Fury said in an interview, you. I think weight classes do matter. I've always said I think young Ben is going to be super strong. He's coming up and he will be full strong to go with the aggression as well. Is a dangerous concoction. Peter Fury starts by emphasizing the importance of weight classes in this matchup, which may be one of the most significant factors. Conor Benn's move up in weight could give him the necessary power to challenge Eubank's size and experience, but Fury acknowledges that strength alone isn't enough to dominate in world-level boxing. With the aggression that Ben brings, it makes him a dangerous opponent, but the fight will come down to much more than just raw power.
So Eubank's experienced. I think he's going to step back, he's going to try and catch him on the way in, try and cover him up, tie him up. I just think and try and get Ben into middle rounds, you know, where Ben's obviously going to be pushing it. He's got to push it. He can't stand off Eubank. He's got to bring it. But bringing it and not having success, where it's hard, you're having a hard 5 or 6 rounds, and the guy's fending you off and he's doing all of these things, and he's a naturally bigger man, can take his toll. Can Eubank take the ferocity of Conor Benn? We don't know.
Fury contrasts Ben's raw power with Eubank's experience. The key strategy for Eubank, according to Fury, will be to use his experience to neutralize Ben's aggression. Eubank's tactics would likely involve frustrating Ben in the early rounds, wearing him down by tying him up and trying to control the pace. The real test for both fighters will be their endurance and mental toughness as they enter the later rounds. Fury emphasizes that the fight is far from one-sided, and there are so many unknowns, making it a true 50-50 matchup where both fighters could either thrive or falter depending on how the fight unfolds. As the rivalry between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. heats up, there's no denying the clash of contrasting styles, and Peter Fury's analysis brings crucial insights into what might happen in the ring. Ben's raw strength coming up from welterweight will give him a power advantage early on, and Fury warns that Eubank needs to survive those explosive rounds to exploit his experience and technical superiority. The fight, according to Fury, is one of endurance and mental fortitude. Both fighters will have to adapt quickly to the evolving dynamics, as one mistake could completely shift the momentum. The early rounds will be pivotal, with Ben's ferocity and aggression creating the pressure, while Eubank, known for his tactical ring IQ, may look to use his superior experience to weather the storm. If Ben fails to land that decisive shot early, Eubank's strategy of frustrating him, tying him up, and keeping the fight at his own pace could be what turns the tide in his favor. The key question is whether Ben can maintain his power throughout the fight against a seasoned fighter like Eubank Jr. The mental preparation will be equally important. Both fighters are aware of the legacy behind this rivalry, and it's not just about their careers, it's personal. With the high stakes and the weight of history on their shoulders, it's clear that the intensity inside the ring will be off the charts. Eubank Jr. may have the edge in terms of experience, but Ben's explosive nature could catch him off guard, making this one of the most unpredictable fights in British boxing history. As the clock ticks down to the April 26th showdown, the question remains, will Eubank Jr. use his experience to dismantle Ben's power, or will the younger, stronger Ben shock the world by overcoming the size and skill gap? This is a fight where every round matters, and no one can afford to make mistakes. Both fighters are ready for war, and we are in for a spectacle that could change the landscape of British boxing forever.